In this week's video, we'll be taking a look at genuine fears I had shortly before joining the university and also in the beginning few months of my journey here in the UK. So let's dive right into it. It's Monday, and that means it's time for me to welcome you to Brilliant Babble, the time of the week where I talk about subjects that are hopefully both informative and lighthearted for you guys. The first fear I want to talk about is probably students' worst nightmare. The fear of having chosen the wrong degree. When we are applying for universities, most of us are like 16, 17, maybe even 18. At that stage of our lives, we are not yet in a position where we are able to say what we want to do as a career for the rest of our lives. I mean, we're so indecisive, and who am I kidding? I don't even know what I want for dinner tonight. Never mind what I want to do as a career as a 17-year-old. But seriously, this constant mental debate between if that degree is the right one for me is really very unhealthy and could even negatively affect your academics and your mental stability. So, since I talk like I'm the expert in the room, how did I do it? How did I choose my degree? Story time. It started in the IGCSE. When I first studied physics in IGCSE, I loved it. All of it. The calculations, the explanations, the theories, and quite shockingly even the tests. And I've done really well. So naturally this led me to choose physics as a higher level subject in IB, thinking that the romance will continue blossoming.
But oh no.
Physics in IB was horrible, unbearable, and sometimes outright the most confusing subject I had to do in my life. Luckily, I passed it and went on to apply to universities. So what did I choose and how did I choose it? I used our best friend from math, the process of elimination. I know there are way more areas to study, but let's break it down into three. There's medicine, business, and engineering. So I thought medicine. Medicine is nice, but it's all about memorizing. And I cannot memorize for shit. I can't even remember names most of the time. Never mind functions of every biological being. Also, I have zero background knowledge and I don't see myself in that field. But God bless the people who choose medicine as their field, as we cannot survive without them. Anyway, medicine is out. Next is business. For business, I also don't have any background information about anything finance related, and I am really not attracted to it, so scratch that too. So I looked at what every engineering field has to offer, what they study and what it's about. And then I thought, what is the most interesting thing I have studied in school so far? What interests me the most? I would probably say technology, and the closest thing I have to technology is electrical and electronic engineering. And I didn't despise engineering, and I loved to study it in physics, even though it was difficult. So I said, screw it. Electrical and electronic engineering it is. I convinced myself from the get-go to go through with this and don't overthink it. My cousin declared me as Aboud Shalt, and I said, Aboud Shalt it is. The second fear I want to talk about is something not all students feel, but I felt it for a long time. The question of, is it worth it? Is it worth the money? Can I produce enough to justify the thousands of pounds spent on my education? Am I too much of a burden? This produced extra pressure for me to achieve, and not the kind of pressure where you transform it into excellence. You know what the worst thing is? You start hearing people around you say things like,
"Why didn't you go to this university? It's way cheaper. Why don't you do this degree? Your degree has no future. There are no jobs. Why are you talking like this?"
But now I realize that all of that is nonsense. And I think this experience has made me grow so much more and experience so many wonderful things and learn so many new things that I think it's definitely worth it. Enough doubting myself with all that bullshit. My opinion is the opinion. Before I continue, let me ask you guys, do you have any similar thoughts or fears? And how do you stop yourself from doubting and overthinking? Let me know down in the comments. One important fear that never left my mind until this day is the fear of missing out. I think most of you will be able to relate to this one. When I get invited to go out and I cannot make it, even though I really wanted to, it feels absolutely horrible. Imagine that, but with every single social occasion for the next 3 or 4 years. For me, I thought maybe I will not have the opportunity to play football anymore, something I really enjoy doing. I thought maybe I won't be able to maintain my friendships. And worst of all, God forbids, I was always afraid that I'm going to miss a loved one's funeral. Obviously, the way to combat this is with technology. We are far, far away from the days of handwritten letters and mail. I can literally see my mom anytime I want. Magic if you ask me. Needless to say, I get all the pictures sent to me of every social gathering, and sometimes I even video call in to make me feel like I'm part of the celebration. You know what really helps? When you read about university policies. For starters, there are 3 major holidays where I can return home. There is Christmas, which is about 3 weeks. There is Easter, which is about 4 weeks. And there is summer, which is about 3 months. This means that I have 4 or 5 months that I can spend back home. That basically limits how many things I can actually miss. Additionally, if an urgent matter requires me to go back, I could file for something called EC, extenuating circumstances. And that basically means that in the case of an unfortunate situation that leads me unable to submit my assessments or tests in time, the university is willing to help me if I inform them, which is always nice to hear, and it's pretty cool if you ask me. It's important to point out that if I were to return 3 times a year to my country, it would cost. But all of these things make me more at ease about being so far away. Now, the biggest fear I had was the fear of failure. What I mean by failure at this point is not reaching your high standard. This is all about the pressure I talked about earlier, with a massive sprinkle of self-doubt. Because studying in a reputable university like Surrey is something I wanted for a long time, I always fear that my grades would disappoint. Disappoint me, but even more scary, disappoint my parents. This can be in terms of grades, other academic performance, and even job opportunities in the future. Like, would this actually get me somewhere? And have I done enough? The first way I deal with this is to study and study hard. Approach my friends and ask them if I need help with anything, and sometimes even make study groups in the library. The second and my most used solution is to complain to my friends, who are probably tired of hearing me complain. Complain about how tough an assignment is or how stress-inducing labs are. Another way I deal with this stress is to find my stress relief method. Most of the time, my stress relief method is playing PlayStation, whether it's getting kill streaks in Call of Duty or scoring goals for fun in FIFA. The most important way to deal with this is the takeaway I want you to have. Fear is normal and it shows that you care. Acknowledge it and you will understand it. Talk about it and you will accept it. Do something about it and you will beat it. Stay curious, stay brilliant, and stay sane.